As Megan mentioned, I'm Jim Langevin, and I'm a recovering politician. So it is great to be here with you today. I want to thank Megan for the introduction and welcome you all, and thank you for being part of the Homeland Security and Defense Forum. Again, for the warm welcome, I thank you for that as well. But I'll begin by saying this. As a founding member of the Committee on Homeland Security, the House of Representatives, it really is especially gratifying to get back to Washington and really spend time with those who share a commitment to solving our country's most pressing national security and homeland security challenges. So I thank you all on the front lines, those who are involved in this field, for what you do. It really does make a difference. And I will say that I served on the committee of Homeland Security from its inception as a select committee, and then as it evolved to a permanent committee, and then served on the committee and right through my retirement in January. And I can tell you that over that time, I saw the nation confront a complex and dynamic set of homeland security challenges, ranging from a global war on terror to a multitude of cyber threats from across the globe that still persist to this day. As the years have gone on, it's become increasingly clear that these cyber threats are among the most consequential to our nation, and I know that many of you see that on a day-to-day basis. Fortunately, the last few years have seen a new strategy, policy, and legislation that collectively represent a real progress towards defending the country against cyber threats. And I really do believe that our current moment, especially in the wake of the release of President Biden's national cybersecurity strategy, presents a prime opportunity in so many ways to reflect on the work that has been done and where our achievements to date position us on our longer journey, I should say, toward a secure cyberspace that truly does benefit all Americans. So I believe that in a lot of ways we're at an inflection point right now on that journey. So we've laid an effective foundation by reshaping the federal government's structure for cybersecurity, installing effective leadership at key agencies, producing far-reaching and forward-looking new strategy and policy. But to continue our trajectory of progress, I believe that we now must build on that foundation, implement that strategy and policy, and mature the structures that we've actually built. So this will, of course, be far from an easy task. In many ways, and in many cases, we'll be confronting some of the deepest and most fundamental problems that have shaped the development of our digital ecosystem. Consider as an example the push to improve the federal government's own cybersecurity. The Biden administration has embarked on an expansive push to improve the defense and resilience of the federal enterprise, driven by the president's executive order to improve our nation's cybersecurity. Now, as many in this room know, EO 14028 called for the rapid adoption of measures to improve the defenses of government systems, including enhancing our ability to detect and respond to cybersecurity incidents, increasing the security of federal software supply chain, and improving our defenses through the implementation of zero trust network architectures. So the breadth and the urgency of this order, I believe, really did signal that the administration saw federal cybersecurity as a clear national security priority, and that federal civilian agencies, many of which have limited experience in dealing with national security challenges, really needed to finally catch up to the threat actors interested in compromising government systems to threaten the integrity of the services or the confidentiality of highly sensitive information at scale. So SolarWinds, which I helped lead the congressional investigation into when I was in Congress, had thrown the deficiencies of federal agencies into stark relief. So EO 14028 is an attempt to confront this challenge. So improving federal cybersecurity, of course, is not solely a question of IT modernization, as important as that is to our overall goals. But at a fundamental level, what we are really trying to do is to rethink what it means for a federal civilian agency to be a national security stakeholder in the digital age, and what cybersecurity responsibilities and priorities those agencies must integrate into their traditional missions. So in many cases, we're attempting to alter decades of institutional thinking. Never easy to change organizational culture or view of an organization, but that really is the challenge. The substantial technical debt and poor security practices seen across the federal government exist in large part because many agencies have historically built, designed, and managed their IT systems without sufficient consideration for cybersecurity as a core mission priority or national security responsibility. The breach of the Office of Personnel Management, of course, was a prime example of this dynamic and why change is urgently needed. So if cybersecurity continues to be an afterthought for federal agencies, the investments that we make now will not lead to enduring progress. Achieving defensible and resilient networks over the long term requires agencies to view their cybersecurity as a priority that is inseparable from their other goals and responsibilities to the nation. So while executing this paradigm shift is far from an easy task, the work that we have done over the past few years to reform the federal government structure for cybersecurity has provided an essential support structure for many agencies. CISA, by way of example, in just 5 years of existence, has made great strides as the operational lead for federal cybersecurity. It provides essential guidance, expertise, and shared services to federal agencies as they work to understand and manage the cybersecurity risks within their own environments. And it is increasingly assertive in its use of things like binding operational directives to drive the adoption of stronger cybersecurity practices across the federal government. So it's a sharp contrast to the state of affairs just a few years ago when CISA required an invitation from other agencies just to hunt for cyber threats on their networks. Thanks to Congress, that has now all changed. So looking ahead, we must continue to ensure that CISA has the necessary resources and authorities to effectively safeguard federal networks and assist those agencies that are still adopting to the newfound strategy and urgency of their cybersecurity responsibilities. And I'll just pause here for a minute to commend Director Jen Easterly and her entire team for the great progress that they have made and continue to make. That adoption further requires agencies to both sufficiently budget for cybersecurity and to recruit and retain a workforce with expertise on cyber matters. Now, the Office of National Cyber Director is a critical partner to federal agencies as they work to achieve these goals. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take a minute just to commend the first inaugural director of NCD, Chris Inglis, who did an outstanding job setting up ONCD and helping to mature it to where it is today. My regret is that he's didn't stay as long as I would have liked, but he's entitled to make that decision, and I support him and all the things that he has done and will continue to do. So through annual budget guidance, ONCD continues to work closely with the Office of Management and Budget to help agencies plan and budget for their cybersecurity responsibilities. ONCD is also finalizing a national cyber workforce and education strategy to be released this summer. The strategy will focus on closing the cyber workforce gap on a national level, but the federal in the federal context, it will be an essential roadmap for strengthening and expanding the government cyber workforce to meet the demands of our current moment. The workforce strategy will also tie into ONCD's broader efforts to lead the implementation of the National Cybersecurity Strategy. So these are exactly the tasks that I had in mind for ONCD when I envisioned this office nearly 15 years ago. So making these kinds of fundamental changes requires, of course, real leadership, which is why I believe it's so important that the White House be deeply involved in coordinating cybersecurity efforts across all the various federal agencies involved in the cyber mission. With nearly 80 staff on board, ONCD is perfectly positioned to drive the sustained effort necessary to move the needle in cyberspace. And I've been glad to see that OECD has not missed a beat since Kemba Walden succeeded Chris Inglis as the National Cyber Director. As you know, she's acting right now, but I believe it's a long time past that she be nominated as permanent NCD by President Biden and confirmed by the Senate. So speaking of Congress, I also do believe that it's important to note the substantial responsibilities, of course, that lawmakers have for federal cybersecurity, especially when it comes to appropriations. So the truth is, for all the planning and budgeting that federal agencies can do, their efforts to shore up their systems will only go as far as their funding dollars will allow. So Congress, therefore, has a huge influence on how quickly and how substantially our federal cybersecurity posture will evolve. And that's why Congress, like the executive branch, must view federal cybersecurity as a core national security priority. We cannot treat this issue as a back burner investment area and expect to reach our goals. So through the American Rescue Plan and the expansion of cybersecurity funding in recent federal appropriations acts, Congress had made some substantial steps in the right direction. I have to say I was deeply disappointed, of course, to see the Fiscal Responsibility Act strip CISA of unobligated funds for federal cybersecurity that the agency had received through the American Rescue Plan. That decision was all the more disappointing considering how far we have to go to reach our goals. Lawmakers must identify and capitalize on opportunities to meet new funding requests that propel agencies along the path to IT and cyber security maturity. I'll just mention here, it is my understanding, by the way, that because of Director Reese's leadership and that of her team, I guess there were very little unobligated funds at the end of the day left over. So that's a good news story. Not sure what, if anything, went back. I'm thinking it's very little, but that's good because those dollars are much needed and will be put to good use. So now some members may hesitate to prescribe substantial new funding for zero trust implementation or modernization of legacy technology systems, but this is the reality of national security in the 21st century. So we cannot rely solely on investments in our armed forces or border protection agencies or on our traditional geographic advantages, because friendly neighbors to the north and the south and oceans to our east and west really mean little when cyber actors, threat actors from all over the world can reach out and affect our most critical systems with ease. So one way to help lawmakers understand the value of cyber-related appropriations, of course, is to improve metrics that illustrate the relationship between our investments and better cybersecurity outcomes. So given the increasing amount of available data about our cyber ecosystem, including through CERCIA, the Cyber Incident Reporting and Critical Infrastructure Act, conversations about how we can use such data to drive more empirically informed policy are more important than ever. So I was a strong proponent of the creation of the Bureau of Cyber Statistics during my time in office. It was a little wonky, but is really where data speaks to making the business case for why spending dollars in the right place is important. And I remain convinced that a statistical agency for cybersecurity could help us actually draw more concrete conclusions about cyber policy, including cybersecurity appropriations and the degree to which they are helping to build more secure and defensible federal networks. However, we reach our goals for federal cybersecurity, we must realize that we are at a critical juncture on this path. The work that we do now will determine how quickly and how effectively the federal government's cybersecurity posture evolves. We have no time to waste, as the cyber threats to government networks will only grow more widespread and more dynamic over time. The urgency of the moment also stems from the fact that the federal cybersecurity is inseparable from our broader cybersecurity goals for the nation. I wholeheartedly agree that the National Cybersecurity Strategy's assertion that improving the security and resilience of the federal government's own systems will better position it to support the defense of critical infrastructure. We must put our money where our mouth is. If the government does not take accountability for its own systems, its efforts to improve the security of critical infrastructure systems will ring hollow, and it will be a more limited partner to the private sector in managing cyber risks. Moreover, driving more secure practices within government will have positive ripple effects across the broader cyber ecosystem, especially when it comes to federal procurement and the security of our software supply chain. Clearly, there's no shortage of opportunities to drive real and effective progress in this space. I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish during my time in Congress. I left knowing that we were well on our way to having the right structure, the right policy, and the right people in place. But also, I knew that those 2 decades of work represented only the beginning of a longer journey. The inflection point that we've reached in that journey now requires us to confront some of the deepest and most fundamental cybersecurity issues that we face. And we'll be challenged to work even harder to collaborate even more effectively for continued progress. But I'm optimistic about our prospects for continued success if we work together. I hope that you all will continue to engage on these issues, both the ones that we've covered today and those that will undoubtedly need to be addressed in the future. With that, I want to thank you for having me here today, and a special thanks to the Homeland Security and Defense Forum. I thank Megan Mance and Chris Long for everything they've done to bring us together today and sponsor this important event. And I really hope you enjoy the rest of the forum's offerings this afternoon. Thank you very much.